What's going on, everyone? This is episode 285. We got virtual Danny on here. You can see her in the background on the screen. Say hi. All right. There's Danny. And this is episode 285. We're going to talk about some of the most common objections that we deal with in office with patients, maybe even with staff. We're going to see where this goes. Danny does lots of training on this. We talk about this on a weekly basis. It's something that you have to just keep sharp with your team. And we have doctors that ask us about these things as well. So I think this is going to be a great podcast episode, not just for your staff to listen to, but for doctors to get some different takes on how to handle these objections. And you can see how we do this. And most importantly, the theme will likely be follow the systems to be 5 steps ahead of the objection from happening to begin with. So let's see how that goes. We're going to get started. Here's the intro. Here's what so many chiropractors have been searching for. How can we expand our clinical reach by finally addressing more than just the segmental component with our patients, but at the same time, not feel like we are selling out our chiropractic principles? The reality is our patients count on us to guide them. And when it comes to results, we must also address their posture and their movement. The verdict is out. Patients have spoken, and this is what they want and what they need, focusing on functional movement and corrective exercise. So how do we practice in a way where our community is engaged, excited, and seeking us out because of this comprehensive, results-based approach? That's the goal we've all been searching for, and this podcast will show you how. My name is Dr. Todd Pickman, and welcome to the Move Now Chiropractor. All right, I'm back. Are you back, Danny?
I am back.
Okay, we can hear both of us. I don't know what happened here. It just popped up me on the screen. Did you see that? Did you do that?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm going to spotlight you so we can look at you because everyone can already see me. All right. And I'm like in hobo gear. I took Grayson to school and it's cold here. I'll take off my plaid, whatever you call it, flannel. Okay. Well, everyone that's watching this or listening to this, but watching this in particular, this is a different setup than we've done before. Normally we have Danny sitting next to me here, but she had like tuberculosis or something last week and she was like super not doing fantastic. And it's more so because she's home with the kiddos doing homeschool and solo today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point what we need to do is just an episode of Supermom, and we need to talk about Danny and how she does this and juggles all this and still gets stuff done and still sleeps more than an hour a night. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
Maybe that's what we need to share on a future podcast episode. This one, we're going to talk about handling objections, the most common objections that we see in office. This one's super important because I feel like a lot of the chiropractors that we work with, that we talk with, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, excellent in many ways, but the handling the objections thing, I don't know how much of a priority they're making that in their office. And so they're letting a lot of things slip through the cracks. The theme of this, like I said before I rolled the intro, was if you have the systems in place, you can be a couple steps ahead of the objection to begin with. That's the best position to be in, is not backpedaling. Okay, so let's just talk about some common objections. So Danny, what's a recent thing you just trained the staff on?
So as far as objections when it comes to care, one of the top ones right now is patients saying that they can't afford care.
Okay. And when is this coming up?
This is coming up usually most of the time after their froth, but sometimes even before their froth, after we go over their first day's charges.
Okay. And so is this happening with my patients and Dr. Zach's patients, or one predominantly? I'm just trying to get an idea of what's happening recently.
I think it's overall.
Okay. All right.
Pretty split between the two with what's going on with the economy right now.
Gotcha. Well, on a side note, I did a virtual froth this morning. You know, for those of you that follow us for any length of time, you know that we do our day 2 and day 3 appointments, like our broth and our froth. So our brief report of findings, which is covering x-ray and recommend and getting a feel for what the patient wants to do. And then building the care recommendations on day 3. We go through that online as well through Zoom. I went through one this morning. The patient's out of pocket, I think, was $3,500 or $3,600, which is probably a little higher than what it was in the recent past, because that's after doing like a single payment discount using Chiro Health USA. That's for 25 visits of care. So it's slightly higher, not by a whole lot. maybe a couple $100 higher than what it was traditionally like a year ago, right? I mean, $3,500 for a prepayment discount. And I think part of something to just throw out there is like your mindset in presenting it also has to be in such a way where you're not like, ooh, it's going to be this much. Here's how much it is. Cause you're like devaluing what you are giving in exchange for what you're charging them. Okay. So it just has to be, this is what it is. You told me you wanted me to build out these care recommendations. I gave you a range of what your initial investment and your costs would be. Now let's go through it. Then we run through it with a patient. And then we check in with them after we've gone through and explained numbers, after they've hopefully seen the value behind what the number is. It shouldn't be like a wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Dun, 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 here's the number. Like it should be on day 2. We run right towards the danger on day 2. And we say the range is anywhere between $2,500 to $4,000. That's a typical range of what it is. Do you have any concerns with that? Anything I can address right now? Because you're going to tell me in just a second, Mr. and Mrs. Patient, do you want me to build out recommendations for you knowing here's the time and here's your financial investment or financial obligation with that? Here's your problem. Here's the time and the money thing over here. Is your problem and the benefit of what you see that we're going to do outweigh the pain of the time and the money? Yes, great. Then let's enter into this relationship. And most importantly, let's now hand this over to Danny or Emily or whomever else is going to build the financial. And like today, you had to build like 6 of them for one patient. We can talk about that later. But going through all this ahead of time, we present this to the patient and we give them the option to make it their idea. So I'm curious if there's a patient that you could think of. You can tell me their first name if it comes to mind, of who's presented these sort of objections, so I can better understand, because I'm like always surprised if someone gives those kind of objections early on, because the only reason we're giving a financial is because they told me that they wanted us to do that. They understood the time and the money, and it shouldn't be a surprise.
Right. So off the top of my head, a specific patient, I don't deal with them too often up at the front desk, so first names not too keen on, but there was one just a couple of weeks ago and we did this in a staff training, where the patient told you over Zoom that they were all on board, they were all for it, they want to get started with the care plan, and I believe it was a gentleman. And the minute he stepped into the office, he said, I don't want to do this. I just want to do assessment only. And it wasn't handled appropriately up at the front desk. So that's why we used it as a staff training. But that was something that happened just a couple of weeks ago.
Cool. So let's maybe walk through this whole process, because that's what I would call the backpeddler, meaning they told me one thing, they then slept on it. They talked to their spouse, who should have watched the video of them going through their BROF, which is their X-ray report of findings, should have gone through the FROF as well. Even better, the spouse should have been there with them. So in hindsight, in the theme of extreme ownership, I'll accept responsibility and say, you know what, something I need to dial up a little bit better is, before I talk to them about, I'm going to see you on a Zoom meeting to run through your X-rays, I'm going to stress more, because I'm not stressing this enough. And I want the staff to stress this more. So Danny, we can give this as a reminder to our wonderful team, is that part of when they schedule the virtual appointment too, I think they're supposed to say this already, is they say, hey, part of the benefit of doing this is so that if you have anyone else that shares in your best interests, meaning like they want to know what's going on with your health, they want to know why you're coming into the clinic and what's going on with you, have them jump on with you. Like, I see that you're married, your wife, Mary. Why don't you have Mary join you? I'm sure she would love to see this. And we can schedule this at a time that both of you can make it. Now, side note, that is our protocol. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be picking a time where both people can be there. It is extremely rare, I'll tell you, in the last couple months, all my virtual appointments, it's rare that I have more than one person sitting there. It's usually just the patient. So that's a party foul on my part and everyone else's part. We need to get the family on there, because most of the time, I don't feel like we handle it like I don't feel like I hit a lot of the roadblocks like this with patients, but in the times that we do, it would have just been that much more helpful for the family member to be there when we're going over their x-rays and going over what's going on with them, you know?
Yeah.
So that's just a little bit of a like, what do you do to prevent the objection to begin with? Well, you step back and you do that. That's one thing that we're obviously failing on some of these patients. Okay. And it's a small thing, and maybe most of the time it doesn't matter. Or if they can't make it, then you say, well, a benefit of this is we can record this session. We can send this off to you via email, and then your spouse can watch this as well. Okay. And sometimes they do, and then it fills them in and they're good. So, okay. So let's say this patient, they came in and they said, now I'm going to do nothing. I just want to get adjusted. I don't want to do any of this care. Okay. So what was your thought process when you did the training, Danny? Take me through it.
So what we had discussed with the staff, obviously number one is in a polite way, calling them out and asking them what changed between this morning when you met with Dr. Todd and now. Dr. Todd gave us a rundown saying that you were really excited to start care. So that's what we planned for your appointment today. What changed?
Yeah. And then just shut up and let them talk. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And then we have a whole list of objections for our staff to kind of study and train. So that way, when they are in these situations, they know which way to guide the conversation. And It's a lot of asking them questions. It'll make them think, it'll make them answer. And so if they're just trying to use an excuse like, oh, my wife said no, or we just can't afford it, it makes them think a little bit more to where you can kind of call them out on their BS and either get them to tell you straight that they just don't want to do it. So we're not wasting our time or their time. Or if they legitimately have concerns and they didn't really think it over, we can help make their mind up for them.
Yeah. Help work through what's going on and help them get what they really want and need, which is they want to be healthy. Yeah. They want to be able to do the things that they weren't able to do, which is why they came into the clinic to begin with. And that's also an important side note. It's like people don't come into the clinic because they have pain. They don't come in because they have a problem. They come in because how it's affecting their ability to live their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I can't play baseball. I can't pick up my kid. I'm frustrated because all day long I can't sit still comfortably and it hurts. Right. And because of that, I can't pay attention and I feel like I'm failing in my job or failing as a parent or whatever it is. Like that's what drives them to say like, now I need to do this thing. And so like another side note of kind of pulling this out is when it goes all the way back to the consultation on the consultation. And so this is a good one too. This is a good reminder for all of the doctors that are doing consultations yourself or your staff. So Jenna is my new patient coordinator. She's the one that does all the new patient stuff. So Jenna, you better be listening to this episode just to see if this needs to be dialed up at all, just even on our end. And like part of going through and talking through this, it's not like we are perfect in every way. We know the protocols and the systems, and I think we do a pretty good job with it. And we help train other chiropractors on this as well. But when we go through these things, it's always good for me and Danny to even go and talk through this because it gives us ideas afterwards of like, ooh, we should probably dial that up a little bit. Or, hey, we forgot about this one thing because we got comfortable in our ways, or one of our staff maybe just thought in their own wisdom, you know, Dr. Todd, he's silly. We don't really need to do this step. It's just another step. It's just a waste of time. And then they decide on their own to not do it. And then we run into a problem. And then I ask the question of like, hey, are we doing this, this, and this? No, I never knew that. And then Danny's like, damn right you knew that because we trained on it like 2 weeks ago. Right? Mm-hmm. So the thing that I was going to say in the consult, it's pulling out these things and be able to identify them. All right. Some people call them emotional hooks. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way of using it to try to manipulate someone emotionally. But the fact of the matter is human beings make all of our decisions off emotion, and then we justify it with fact. We back it up with some kind of fact, but we make our decisions emotionally because that's what we are. We're emotional beings. So what's the thing that is the hook that brought you in, right? And sometimes when you communicate with people like this, like they break down, and it's not like the goal is to make them break down and cry, but it's like they show their emotion of like, I'm so frustrated, or I'm scared, or I'm disappointed, or whatever. And it's like, if you can build their hope up and show them that there is a solution to this, like in all likelihood, we're going to be able to help you. We're going to be able to help transform your life. It's going to be amazing. You're going to love it. Right now, though, you're at the beginning of that. You haven't even started that process yet. So if you can see there's a light at the end of the tunnel and you can trust the process, we can get you there. And you're going to look back and say, maybe it wasn't easy. Maybe it wasn't convenient, but it was one of the best moves I ever made in my life. Like that's where that person needs to get. And if we allow these little petty objections along the way to get in the way, they're never going to reach that potential. Right? So it's so like in the consultation, it's writing down, what is your thing that you cannot do in your life that you wish you could do? Like, Mr. Jones, if there's one thing that we were able to help you with, what would that thing be that would help you live the life that you want to live? Well, if I just didn't have this crazy searing low back pain every time I bent over, I could play with my 3-year-old and I could feel like I could watch him grow up and enjoy that process and not feel like an old man prematurely. Yeah, you're feeling like an old man. That's probably kind of scary, right? Yeah, it's scary. I feel like, I'm not how I used to be. And I fear like what's going to happen next month from now or next year from now, because certainly this isn't going in a good direction. Right. And it's like getting that conversation going with a patient is huge, because then you write that down. Like, here's what the patient wants to do. This is what's important to them. So then when they come back later and they're like, yeah, I can't afford it. You're like, you can't afford what? Well, I can't, and they're like, well, I can't afford to come in. It costs $3,000. And you're like, okay, so is it a matter of if you're going to go through this program or just finding a how? Because we have different options as far as how you can get through the program. If one of the hurdles is you can't afford $3,000 right now, we have other options. So, hey, no big deal. Let's work through it. Let's figure out a solution. But it's like on the flip side, if they don't value it, there's never money.
Yeah.
Like if they don't value it, they're never going to find money. If they don't care, if it's not important, but then it's like they came into you, you had a solution, a proposed solution for them, either, and this is stuff we've covered in the past, so forgive me if you watched a lot of our stuff and this is redundant, but it's good to hear over and over again, because I'll say this sometimes to a patient just to straight up tell them, like, here's the thought process. Either A, you don't trust the process. You don't trust this is going to produce the result that you want and that we're telling you that we've done with hundreds of patients before you. Okay, that's step one. Step two, you don't trust me. There's something about me, you think I'm lying to you. Okay, I don't know. Sorry, I can't change that. All right. 3, you don't trust yourself to follow through the process. Now this one, trusting yourself, we have a lot of things in place to help guide you and motivate you. We have the 12-week transformation. We have an amazing team. Our staff is awesome. And our staff is awesome. Like, we get compliments from our patients all the time. So the staff's awesome. They're going to be there to motivate you and help you along the way, to help with that hurdle. And once you put it in place and that habit becomes ingrained and you just do it automatically, trusting me part, I don't know. If you can't trust me, maybe you want to see Dr. Zach or see a different doctor or something. I don't know. Sorry that I rubbed you the wrong way. Hopefully that's not a big objection. And then the first one is you don't trust the process. And you're like, well, what is it about the process that you're questioning, that you don't trust? Because the cool thing with the process is that we do Gonstead, chiropractic, biophysics, and functional movement. I know our doctors out there, it's the functional movement part that brings us together. You don't have to be a Gonstead chiropractor or do CBP necessarily, but I'm biased. I think that combination works really powerfully. But we have upper cervical doctors that do functional movement stuff, get great results as well. So it's like specificity is what I'm really trying to stress here. It doesn't have to be the same technique, but specificity and addressing posture and curve, I think that is the winning combo. And so with that, it definitely gives us a lot of leverage to be able to push back on that first objection and be able to say, in the case of like chiropractic biophysics, okay, is there something I can clarify? Because this happens to be the most evidence-based research method of spinal correction on the planet. What about it would you like me to help clarify? And like the cool thing with CBP, they put so much stuff out there. They have over 200 peer-reviewed published papers. So it's the most researched thing in chiropractic. They have all that stuff to be able to help with that emotional decision-making process that's backed up by fact, right? Because like you might have that, like I'm a scientist and everything I do is by fact and you got to tell me fact, fact, fact. Okay. That's your emotional hook. Facts are your emotional, oh, I feel secure because I have these facts and they make me emotionally feel secure. It's still an emotional decision. So then provide them the facts, right? But it's asking questions, like you said, getting to the root cause of it, getting to the bottom of it. And, like to think that every front desk person in every clinic is going to be able to go through that process. No, but they can ask some of those initial questions and then they can segue it into the patient talking to the doctor and the doctor can finish the process. The doctor should be the skilled communicator, the most skilled communicator in the clinic, but the team should always be trying to improve their communication on a daily basis because they're going to interact with the patient in times that the doctor's not going to have that opportunity. Okay. And then there's like a really classy way of the team being able to do a 3-way handoff to the doctor to not come across like I'm a little kid telling on the other little kid to mommy or daddy, right? But like still being able to say, okay, so Dr. Todd, I was just talking with John. He was saying that he had some concerns following, that he thought about some things following your guys' meeting earlier today. He wanted to bring those to your attention so you guys can walk through that. The concerns was this, this, and this. Take it from here. And you can say it in a very, professional and like not finger pointing or like uncomfortable way. And then at that point, I'll just be like, hey, John, what's going on? And then you just have a conversation, But I'm hoping that doesn't happen a whole lot because, man, we give so many opportunities for the patients to like bail out early on or throw objections out early on. See our past podcasts and training we've done on virtual appointments on day 2 and day 3 because we handle this in the virtual appointments. Okay, here I don't want to steal all this. So, Danny, what are your thoughts or things that I'm missing here, or like other pieces you want to add?
Just the only thing that I would touch on is the handoff to you. So if the girls up front have kind of got to a good spot to where they feel like maybe you need to step in or just give them a little bit of a nudge, how that handoff works to you and Jenna so that way you guys can carry on the conversation in the back via our chat system throughout the office. The front desk girls will give you and Jenna a rundown of the conversation that they just had with the patient. If they hand it off to you, it's because they almost got the patient ready to commit. Maybe there's just a little bit more concern that they have that you can answer those questions for them. It's very rare that a patient will come up to the front after their virtual and be like, I don't want to do care. And that's what they end up doing. 99% of the time we work through the objections and they end up leaving with their home care and signing their care plan. So they will hand that off to you via our chat system, give you and Jenna the rundown of what they just spoke about with the patient. So that way, when you pull the patient into the adjusting room, it's pretty seamless. You can answer the remainder of their questions and then they carry on their appointment like they were scheduled.
Okay, cool. So like on that last, just to really hit it home on the, I can't afford this, like that's a huge objection that there's so many different angles to that. It's not like if someone says, I can't afford it, you say this. It's like, no, you got to ask questions and figure out what's going on. So first is like, well, if the patient said earlier they wanted to go through care and the doctor met with them on day 2 on the virtual BROF, going over the x-rays, part of that day 2 is at the end, it's saying, here's the time commitment. Here's the range of out-of-pocket investment, expense, cost, whatever you want to call it. Is this what you expected? Any concerns with that? Is that something that you can imagine yourself going through? Can you picture yourself going through that? And then the patient works like the doctor and the patient work through that right there, So unless you're brushing over it and going, oh, it's, about $2,500 to $3,500 or whatever. Okay, let's not talk about it. Let's keep moving. And then you don't check in with a patient to be like, how do you feel about all this so far? Like a powerful question. How do you feel about this so far? And the patient's like, well, it's kind of overwhelming because, money right now is really tight. Hey, I totally get it, John. I totally get it. A lot of patients are in the same boat, but at the end of the day, what other options do you have right now? Yeah, I know this thing's been really, I mean, what you could do, you could just try to address symptoms and then wait for this to get really bad and then go have a $50,000 to $80,000 surgery. I mean, that is an option realistically. You know, you can keep taking painkillers, let this thing break down. And then when it breaks down and you're really bad in crisis, unfortunately, this conservative level of care that I'm confident can help you now might not be an option in the future. And then you have to escalate it up to things that are going to have probably a less positive likely outcome, more invasive, more side effects, and more expense. So I get it. It's a tough spot to be in, but it's like one of those things like either pay now or pay later. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you think? I mean, what do you think you should do? You know, like that those are the questions you have with a patient. You have to be their coach, and like you have to be separate from the process in a sense where you're like, this does not affect me. This is your body and your life. What do you want to do? You came into my clinic and you said, I have this problem. Hey, John, hey, by the way, do you remember how you found out about us? Oh yeah, I was recommended by Mike. He said you guys transformed his life. You saved his life. You helped him so much. Yeah. What do you think would have happened with Mike if he never took the chance to go through this process himself? Do you think he'd be in such good shape right now? No. You know, or they're like, yeah, you're right. And you're like, I'm right about what? Oh, you're right. I just should go through this. I need to do this. Okay, why? And then you push it a little further and you let the patient really commit to it. And it's because they're talking through the process themselves. Like they're sharing what's going on in their head out loud and helping justify back and forth. Okay, here's why I need to do this. That's what helps them reach a higher level of certainty so that they don't have this like pseudo buyer's remorse thing where they're telling me one thing and then a couple hours later something else happens. But part of that too is they're maybe not the sole decision maker, right? Like someone else is in control of the funds. They weren't part of this process. They don't understand what's going on with your body. They just think this is just another chiropractor. You just go in and get your back cracked. Why does it cost $3,000?
Yeah.
Right? Like you can go to the joint and it's like $17 a month and get your back cracked as much as you want. Why don't you just go there? I mean, obviously that's way smarter. Duh. Right? So in summary, when someone says, I can't afford it, there is no one-liner of it. But it's that something was missed prior to that. But when they say that I can't afford it, some questions have to be asked and it needs to be hand off to the doctor and the doctor needs to come back around to what happened. That's not the only objection that we would hear is I can't afford it. But it's probably the most common thing is it has something to do with money. Sometimes patients aren't going to tell you the money makes me nervous. They make up another excuse, but it comes back to the money.
Yeah.
Right.
It always does.
Yeah. I mean, it's time or money. It's time or money. And it's ultimately like, again, they don't trust the process / see, or maybe even see the value in it. They don't trust you. They don't like you. You rub them the wrong way. Okay. So work on it. Stop being so sleazy or scumbag or come across as untrustworthy. I don't know. I'm saying this as like other doctors listening to this, or even like myself. If I misstep sometimes, you know, if I talk too much, if I say something I shouldn't say, I feel like I'm devaluing that just authority position of coming with confidence and someone that could be trustworthy. Like, don't talk too much. That's another thing. Don't feel like maybe your inexperience in practice or your newness in practice, you have to make up with talking for 45 minutes instead of 15 minutes.
That's a good point. That's the big thing that I come across with these newer members who are joining Move Now when we do our weekly implementations, is they struggle during their financial because they're trying to convince the patient why this is a good idea, and it should already be pre-framed before that. So you don't really have to spend 45 minutes trying to convince the patient why this is a good idea. Or they're newer, they're extremely excited about all this stuff that they know, and they just want to tell the patient everything that they know, and then they lose them. Mm-hmm. And another one, since we're on this topic, that is a big thing with members, is they are scared, nervous themselves to tell a patient how much it costs. They're like, wow, this just costs so much. I don't know. My other care plans before I started doing all this amazing things, they weren't that much. I don't know how my patients are going to receive it. It's like, if you're nervous and scared about telling a patient this amount, they're going to be scared and they're going to be nervous about paying that amount. So you have to approach it with confidence. So I think that's another good thing to touch on while we're on this topic. Not necessarily an objection, but just doctors being confident in what they're providing for the patient and that the cost matches that. And when they're telling the patient how much it costs, I always tell them, don't say it with a question mark on the end. If you say it with a question mark on the end, like, oh, this is going to cost you, $3,500, and you say it with a question mark on the end, the patient's going to question it.
For sure.
Don't do that.
It's funny because think about, just for a second, just all of you listening to this or watching this, think about purchase decisions that you have in life. If something is too inexpensive, do you think, ooh, this is a great deal, I'm going to buy it? Do you also maybe think, maybe this isn't all that valuable because it's so inexpensive? Why is it so inexpensive? On the flip side, if something is more than maybe is comfortable, do you feel like, wow, this must really be valuable, or this must really be like the real deal because the last place I went to was like half this? Man, this is double. This must be like really good.
Yeah.
So I typically, like, my mental state on things, I look at something and like a good buddy of mine, Tyler from Stockpile Defense. Am I wearing the Stockpile Defense? Yep. Black Rifles Matter. Okay. Stockpile Defense. So guns are expensive. And gun stuff is expensive, and I like lots of guns. Okay, no, guns are disgusting. People who own guns are disgusting, Danny. We never have any guns, and so if anyone's listening or watching this, guns, no, no reason. Those people. Okay, so something that Tyler says, he says, buy once, cry once. All right, and that's like, if you're buying something or you're investing in something, the most expensive thing you can buy is the thing that is crap or doesn't work, or that you have to buy again because you bought something that, so it's like just to speak a little bit on what Danny said. And I think she hit all the important points, is you should never feel like you're trying to convince someone of anything. If you ever feel like that, just stop talking and ask a question, because you're going down the wrong road.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's such a true thing. If you've ever been in this purchasing decision and someone's trying to convince you on something, does it make you want it more or less? Less, because you're like, just get away. Stop being so needy. Yeah. It's like the guy that is everyone's friend but doesn't want to be anyone's boyfriend, right? Oh, he's so nice. Yeah, he's so nice. Right? It's like you have to have a little bit of mystery behind it. Like, don't be so nice all the time. I'm not saying be mean, but just authority. Here's what it is. That allure behind it a little bit is going to make the person curious, and they're going to be drawn to it more, because keep in mind, people come in and like chiropractic care and corrective care is not the sexiest thing in the world when you're looking at different things you can put your money into. There's this difference between wants and needs, right? And like a good little side analogy on that is like a car. Okay. So a car, you're driving down the road, you get a flat tire, you get a nail in your tire, and you're like, crap, I got a flat tire. And you are pissed off that you got a flat tire. And now you got to go get towed or put on your spare, go to the tire place and pay money and take time to patch the tire or get a whole new tire. But you need that tire. Okay, you need it. Like, you're not operating your vehicle without it, but you're pissed off about it the whole way. Okay, that's the patient that comes in with acute low back pain and they have sciatica and they need to get out of pain and they hate the process. They're not all stoked about paying the money or putting the time in. Okay, so they're like, I want to get out of here as quickly as possible and never come back to see you. I just want to get past this thing that I know I need to do. I don't want to do it. The flip side, car analogy. You want to get some nice wheels on your car, okay? You want to make your car stand out, look nice, get some low profile tires, right? cruise around the block, everyone turning their heads going, oh yeah, look at them wheels, right? You want someone doing that, right? So that's a want. I want that, right? Name that movie. I want that. You know what that's from? It was filmed in Idaho. Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's the part where he was like selling the Tupperware, and then he's like, or you can get this, and it's like the ship inside of the jar, and then the woman's like, I want that. Remember that? Okay. Anyway, so the wants and the needs, wanting something, there's a lot more of emotional drive behind it. So how do you take the thing that they need and get them to want it? And that is by speaking to what's going on in their life, all the stuff I talked about, their activities of daily living that are being suppressed or suffering because of their problem. They want to improve those activities of daily living. That's a want for them. Paint a picture in the future, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. What do you want your life to look like? Those are the things that they need to be thinking about, because that's going to help drive them to make this want, purchase, and time commitment decision. So handling objections is like understanding all the psychology behind it. And again, not to be manipulative and use this for evil, but to use it for good, because you have the coolest product in the world. You have chiropractic care, functional movement, hopefully some corrective work. You're going to help transform this person's life and probably have one of the biggest impacts in their life out of any person that they ever meet ever. I mean, it's huge. Like I'm not trying to be sensational with it. It's a massive commitment. Your team should be excited about that too. It's a really cool thing that we do every day.
Yeah.
Or you just let them walk out and then their life's never the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so tell all your team, if they let someone walk out the door or not transform their life, they have to know that they are personally responsible for that person's life never being the same. Big commitment. I mean, don't stress them out over it, but it's like, be prepared. Like saying, oh, I didn't know, or whatever. Ask someone else, like phone a friend, you know, grab someone else on the team that's more experienced and have them handle it. You know, like have the patient hang out, call the doctor out of the room if you have to, for them to handle it for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Best case scenario is handle all those things ahead of time so it never happens, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. You just have to handle it, and you have to be well prepared. And, you know, especially just being congruent, having the same message as the doctor so that the staff reiterates the same thing. That makes the patient feel secure. They're hearing the same thing from the front office as they are from the doctor. Right. And more than anything, like the staff understanding, here's the behind the scenes. Here's how the conversation went when the doctor went through their x-rays. Here's how it goes. I know the methodical process. I know the patient experience. I know the objections that are pulled out and handled then. So if they know that, they can be confident to be like, well, you're at this point right now in our clinic, supposed to be coming in for day 4, which is right after we go through the recommendations and all the financial stuff. So you made it to day 4. Your only option should be, how do you want to pre-schedule and take care of a payment option? If you're going like this other option, like you're backpedaling on something, something's going on, because I know you went through this experience on day 2 and day 3, like x-ray review, give them options. Day 3, present the options, go through the clinical care, handle any leftover objections. Now they're on day 4 and there's a problem. Like you just have to look at them with like a total look of just bewilderment. Like, you know, like how is that even, that never happens. How is it even possible? You know, not like, oh, okay, you don't want to do care? Okay, no problem. See ya. Bye. Yeah. You know? All right. Again, I hogged the mic for a while. We're 39 minutes in. And that's one objection, kind of.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main ones, because it goes both ways. So it goes front office staff, and then it also goes to the way the doctor is pre-framing things, how they handle objections beforehand. So I think that one was good.
Yeah, I think it is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's good because it's just honest and it's transparent. And like right now on this podcast, like if there's a patient listening to this, there's nothing that I said in this that I wouldn't want a patient to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the way you need to operate in your clinic. Like you shouldn't have this like secret that you talk about with your staff that you'd never want a patient to hear because they'd be like, you guys are scumbags. Like, this is what you do, you know, because that's not ethical and that's not right. Like, that's why I never wanted to implement any of that language or any of that into our clinic. Like, for example, on a side note, you know, we're operating a business. Yes, we have to pay our staff, we have to pay overhead, we have all these expenses. But there's this like dirty connotation around money. Oh my gosh, money is so bad. And it's like, no, it's what makes this whole process work so we can deliver the service that you need to transform your life.
Yeah.
So let's say that when we get like a bunch of insurance checks in, which is a good thing because like that gives us confidence that we can keep our business running and that all of the effort and the time and stuff, like we're getting compensated so that we can support our families, right? Mm-hmm. So when that stuff comes in, you know, like I've had staff in the past that they're excited about it because they know that's a positive thing for the clinic, but they'll come over and maybe say in front of other staff, oh, we got this big check-in today or something. Like, I don't like that. I don't like hearing that. I don't like that being announced in front of other staff because I never want any of our staff to feel like our number one main drive is like money, money, money. How do we make money? Okay. And so if you're listening to this and that's your main drive, that could be part of the reason that you're struggling or having some problems with success because that is coming across. And I would say your main drive should be, I think should be, I mean, there's nothing wrong with making money, but I think the main drive should be fulfilling a very important purpose, helping guide your patients, helping them transform their lives. There's nothing more rewarding than having a patient go through the process and a year later, the patient's like, you know what? A year ago when I came in here, that was the best decision I ever made in my life. Like, it's helped me so much. I was depressed. I had this, and all that stuff is transformed. And like my whole family is so happy. And you know, like that's so cool. That's the stuff that I don't care what stressful thing you have going on in your life or in your clinic that day, that will boost you up. And when your team hears it too, it'll boost them up a ton. And it's just such a great driver of motivation. That's why we do what we do. Okay. Yep. Like, I mean, that's what keeps it going. And, you know, you're going to have ups and downs. It's the way you handle it that I think is what speaks the volumes. Like this morning I had some virtual appointments and our first guy, his email wasn't spelled right. So he never got the reminders and it was a little bit frustrating because I went to the gym this morning. I rushed out of the gym to get home for him to just struggle bus on Zoom, trying to get on Zoom, and it never happened. So we had to move the appointment. But anyway, so I was communicating with Jenna. I'll even read you the text message because Jenna is my assistant in the clinic. So her and I communicate quite a bit. She's getting a bunch of stuff done and we have to put some rec cards and stuff together. And then after that, I was supposed to meet with a patient of mine's father to discuss some of the insurance stuff. And then he was like, no, I'm not meeting with you. And I don't think he meant to be rude, but it was kind of blunt how it came across. So I texted with him a while and we got it resolved and it's good. And so I could tell like Jenna was already getting a little bit, oh my gosh, this is how Tuesday started. So she's like, happy Tuesday, and gave me a little emoji with like an upside down smile. And then she said, I sent you everything for blank and blank. If you can get those done today, that'd be great. And I put, haha, yep, thanks. And I said, all uphill from here. Got the frustrating parts out of the way so we can focus on having an awesome and productive day. And she said, I like your attitude. And it's like, in the moment I sent that, because I don't always respond like that. I'm not saying I'm perfect. So I don't always respond like that. But after I sent that and I saw her response, I was like, you know, like I could have been like, man, today sucks. This is like the worst day ever. Like, way to start our day, crappy day, you know? And then she would have had this like drawn down energy all day long and things would have bugged her more, I'm sure. What was that beep? Was that you or me?
That wasn't me.
Okay. I think we're still going. I think we're good. Okay, good. All right. So anyway, instead I was like, good. Okay. And that reinforced me to try to be more positive too on these things, which I think I do more times than not. But as I'm talking to Danny, she probably hears me vent about stuff more than anyone. But I mean, at the end of the day, you roll with the punches, you go through it and you keep going and you find the positivity in it. And to round out this handling objections thing is there's a lot we talked about, you know, hopefully this was helpful for you. I know it took a course all over, but that's how you have to cover this stuff. It's not, I can't afford it, you say this. I said that a couple of times in this. It's like, no, there's so much infrastructure that needs to be built around that, so that when that objection does come out, you're like, let's dive into that a little deeper. Like, you have to love handling those objections. Like, you can't dread it. You have to be like, oh man, oh John, come over here. Let's talk. Right? Like, John, if you could only look and see what your life would be like 12 weeks from now after you go through the 12-week transformation, you would think it was so silly you're saying this right now. Like, that has to be your thought process of like, you don't even know what good stuff is coming, man. Let's break this down step by step, and let's help you get through this. Sound good, John? Yeah, sounds good. That's all John and Mary want. Right? Yeah. John and Mary are fictitious names that we use for the role playing of patients. All right. Well, first virtual podcast with Danny on the big screen behind me. We'll see what the audio sounds like afterwards. I think it's pretty good. I know I stole the mic for 90% of it anyway, but hopefully all of your audio is nice and clear and loud. We'll find out. And, those out there watching and listening, check out our demo that we have of our program. Like, if this stuff resonates with you and you like the way that we think and the systems and all of that, that's what we built a whole basically practice management system around. It started with functional movement, but it's like everything you can imagine in a clinic, we pretty much cover, and we have protocols for, and we share it inside of Move Now University. So check out the demo. It's demo.movenowu.com. It's a 30-minute pre-recorded demo. Shows you what the platform looks like, so you can get an idea of the teaching process and how you and your team can learn this stuff. And, I get emails periodically from doctors that are using this stuff. Like, I think I sent you, Danny, that email we got from our doctor out in the UK, and he sent all the pictures of his clinic and all that. And he's been pretty much a self-starter on a lot of this stuff, and he's taken it and run with it. And he had this really nice write-up of just how much it's transformed his practice and helped him, and his patients love it. And he's out in the UK, and he's put this in place. And I think I asked him if we could use that as a testimonial. It'd be nice to be able to show that off to the rest of the world too. But
yeah.
Anyway, all right, fun stuff. Any final words?
As always, no.
No? Okay. How did your hair turn out?
It's still attached to my head, so it's good.
Okay. That's good. Yeah. I got a text yesterday from Danny. She was doing a bunch of stuff. She said she was frazzled. And then she told me she was frazzled because she was running around doing stuff with like work, tending to questions I had, to kids, to all this stuff all at once. And she was dyeing her hair, and she left the dye in for a long time. And I was like, is that bad? And she's like, well, if it was bleach, my hair would have all fallen out or something, but, but it's darker. So anyway, all right.
It's good.
Side note, just sharing a little bit of our personal life. I don't know if Danny wanted to share that, but.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think it would be really cool to show what a day looks like for me.
Okay. Why don't you map out something that we have visually, and then we can walk through it, and we'll do our next podcast episode. And that'll be a really cool one for office managers to see, for everyone, staff wise to see, for like time management stuff. And just give you a different perspective, because Danny has done a really good job with this as far as just balancing, juggling a lot.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Danny, for jumping on virtually, and thanks everyone for watching and hanging out with us. I'll roll the outro, listen to the links. There's some good stuff in there, book and demo. So we'll see you on the next episode. Subscribe and follow, and YouTube and podcast and all that good stuff. And we'll roll it. Want more Move Now secrets? If so, then go get your copy of my best-selling book and watch my 30-minute behind-the-scenes Move Now demo. My book is called Move Well Secrets, and you can get your free copy at book.movenowu.com, and watch the 30-minute demo of our exclusive doctor training portal at demo.movenowu.com. With these two resources, you'll find my top 22 secrets that we've used to build one of the smoothest running, results producing, and super profitable exercise departments within a chiropractic clinic in the entire profession.